Hello. Today's video is going to look at Sheila Birling, J B Priestley's poster child for socialist conversion in his rattling good play and Inspector Calls. Now we're going to analyse some of Sheila's lines of dialogue to give us an insight into her character. Then we're going to take her words and marry it up with various contextual details, because you know a lot of exam boards approve of that. Finally, we're going to blend it all together into first class paragraphs, tailor-made to bring a bit of light into the bleak lives of your average examiner. So, Sheila Birling, let's crack on. Although she changes over the course of the narrative, we get a real insight into Sheila's initial character, the mercenary or materialistic streak running through her, by the way that she responds to old Gerald whipping out that engagement ring. What does she say? She coos something like, "No, I really feel engaged." What's this tell us about Sheila? Well, it says to me, and maybe I'm being cynical, that for Sheila, love alone is insufficient. She needs an expensive ring, this, twinkling token or trinket, in order to validate or legitimise the relationship. I mean, it says that she looks at it admiringly. That ring didn't come out of no Kinder Egg. That ring cost. So, monetary value for Sheila bestows value on the relationship. Now I really feel engaged. Let's dig down a bit now into what Priestley is doing here. As you know, the social or political message of this play is tightly bound up with its plot and characters, and the crafting of Sheila here is no accident. What Priestley is doing through the depiction of Sheila here is saying to us, the audience, look how flawed, how soulless, how mercenary our capitalist masters truly are. They're unfit to govern. Also, I've just thought about this now, and it will knock your socks off. In Act 2, when Sheila returns the ring, yes, on one level that's her saying, "You dumped fella, get over it," to Gerald. But look at that gesture symbolically. Returning the ring, it's like rejecting materialism, capitalist values, as she gravitates ever more closer to socialist principles. Hey, you've got a good deal here, folks. I've swapped my ugly mug for exam paragraphs of eye-watering beauty. I've taken ideas from those previous two slides and I've percolated them, refined them down into this level 9 prose. The ink may be black, but that there, ladles and jelly spoons, is pure gold. See how I respond to an Edexcel style question and tonking that glorious contextual nugget too. All served up in the academic tone, the critical style of writing that as examiners weep in salt tears of joy. You might want to pause the screen, just have a good old gulp at this. This is what examiners want. So, we've seen Sheila's obsession with possession, drooling over that ring. But it's not long before she's shaking off the shackles of that materialism, that heartlessness that characterises the bourgeoisie, and throwing herself headlong into the ever-loving arms of socialism. What does she say? Well, they're talking about the working class women making starvation wages in Mr. Birling and Mr. Croft's factory, and she says that they're not cheap labour, they're people. Why? Well, because the penny's dropped. Because she cares, y'all, she realises the proletariat are not simply there to keep her in a luxurious lifestyle through their blood, sweat and toil. They're not just economic units, a faceless group or monolith to generate wealth for the bourgeoisie. They're human beings, they're people, mothers, fathers, children, and they're deserving of a lot more care and consideration than they're currently getting. Socialism means putting the needs of the many people above the privileged few, and we're seeing Sheila take these baby steps towards more socialist principles. Here's the obligatory contextual factor to marry up with that analysis of Sheila. We're really going to contextualise Sheila's dialogue here. 1945, when the play's written, World War II has just ended, and massive numbers of ordinary people have died for their country. So it's never been more obvious that the poor deserve a better deal, a fairer deal. And why set this play in 1912? Well, that is Priestley's masterstroke, because it's saying to his 1945 audience, stop, this is a warning. Don't go back to the old ways, that Edwardian style of laissez-faire government, laissez-faire meaning leave your citizens be, Don't help them out with dole or health care or sick pay or pensions. Let them sink or swim, thrive or die in a society very much stacked against them. And you could argue that Priestley's message really resonated, struck a chord with the British people, because that same year, 1945, the Labour Party swept to power and they renationalised industries, they rolled out the welfare state, the NHS, and the poor started to get a better deal. You know the drill by now, folks. Once I've honked on about something that Sheila's said or done, with a wee bit of contextualisation, it's time to turn that thinking into level 9 loveliness, A-star sumptuousness, so we can see how to serve up our analysis in a way that meets the examiner's approval. And just to kind of ram home the critical style of writing that I'm using here, that, believe you me, scores me big brownie points with the examiner, I've used my red and green highlighters. Green, that's like relevant terminology that I'm using that will engage an examiner. Red is just high-level language or high-level lexis, if you want to call it that. In fact, a good trick to foreground and foster that critical style, look at some of the words in red and try and work backwards. Think about a weaker word that I could have used. Ushering, for example, in the first line, well, I could have used bringing. Transition in the second line, well, I could have used change. Of course, you can get a level 9 with bringing and change, but you can see that stylistic polish born of applying articulate phrasing accurately and appropriately really boosts the quality of my response. I refuse to give this book the hard sell, folks. Buy it or not, it's up to you. In fact, if I wanted to aggressively flog it, I'd always put this advert earlier on in the video. Right now, it's only the most committed, the most competent students that are still with me. What can I say? This book helped get my year 11 last year more 8s and 9s than I thought possible. I was wept with pride. In no uncertain terms did this book help them, and it can help you too. The final quote that we'll poke a literary stick at is this one from the tail end of the play, Act 3. And Gould has just been exposed as a fraud, a hoax. He's not a proper copper. There's no police inspector called Gould. And the relief that washes through Mr. and Mrs. Birling. They feel they're off the hook, don't they? No Gould means no dead body, means no crime. But Sheila, aided by her newfound socialist principles, realises these idiots are missing the point. I mean, sure, none of these family members has really committed a crime in the legal sense. It's unlikely they'll be prosecuted for what they did to Eva. But in terms of morality, moral crimes, these Birlings are guilty as sin. Sacking Eva, seducing Eva, denying her charity, all the things that the Birlings and Gerald did are highly immoral. They go against God and the Bible. So he inspected us all right, as Sheila says, shows she recognises that the inspector identified great corruption at the core of the ruling class. Here's a curveball bit of context for you. Now I realise that there are dozens of contextual details that you can link up with a analysis of character and theme. But if you like this one, I've got a video that looks at it in a bit more depth. Check this out, right? 20 years after he wrote An Inspector Calls, Priestley writes this rattling good murder mystery novel called Salt is Leaving. And it's about a local doctor, Dr. Salt, who realises that the death of a local working class girl is in some way connected with the powerful capitalist family in the same locality. Now let's clarify that context. 20 years after An Inspector Calls, Priestley's still relaying the same message, still thumping the same tub. Rich exploits poor, the bourgeoisie thrive at the cost of the proletariat. He must feel that his play, and perhaps Britain, have failed to secure the sort of long-term socialist change that he sought to see. Here's another winning paragraph wrapping up the fruits of that analysis in level 9 robes. Read it if you're so inclined. And that's it, folks. Sheila Birling starts this play as a right petulant, materialistic little missy, blissfully unaware that her life of ease and comfort is propped up by the suffering of the poor. However, through Gould's machinations, Gould's influences, she is catapulted onto the side of the angels, and very soon she's articulating socialist views and showing a genuine shame and remorse for the exploitative practices of her social tier. She also shows a genuine humane desire to lighten the plight of the poor. Sheila Birling then, very much Priestley's poster child for socialist conversion.